All roads are leading to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl.
And security is growing tighter ahead of Georgia's appearance in that matchup this Thursday. It's also the anniversary of the Bourbon Street terror attack. More than a dozen people died in that attack last New Year's Day. Now, authorities say that a man inspired by ISIS drove through the crowd there on Bourbon Street before opening fire. He died in a shootout with police. The city of New Orleans is now considering permanent barriers to block cars from driving on Bourbon Street. And in the meantime, police are using cameras to monitor that area after hours. The cameras will flag any moving cars. And the city also requested help from federal law enforcement and the Louisiana National Guard, currently deployed in the city. Troops will stay through Mardi Gras.